Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy's Ted.
This dungeon master is killing his D&D players, but he's totally doing it wrong.
Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. Get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
As always, the GM91, the original one, can be found in the description below. And as well, if you have your own GM91 you'd like to send to Nerdarchy, send it to nerdarchy@gmail.com, GM91 in the subject line.
All right, so this is coming from Daniel, and he's got this interesting idea. He wants to start off having the players make a version of their characters at low level, where they're going to start playing, and a high level where they see themselves ending up. So plan to open the campaign storming a castle of the villain with a high level version. They cut through the villain's minions like paper, and they reach a final fight. The tide is going to turn because the villain has these incredibly powerful items which the villain brags and boasts about. And then he destroys the high-level party. And he talks to them like he's run into them multiple times, like there's some kind of history there. The next thing, the players wake up in a cold sweat, exhausted, and they remember these events as if it was a dream or a premonition, and they start playing with the low-level adventurers. So he wants them either by the grace of the gods or some other power wanting to help the players. How would you roll with this idea if you were going to implement it in your game, and how would you pitch this kind of idea to your players?
One, I think it's a cool concept, terrible execution. Anytime you want something to happen, just say it happened. Don't play through it. It's pointless. You've proven to the players that their choices don't matter. What they're doing has no point because you're going to do what you're going to do anyway. And on the off chance that a player comes up with something really clever to do to outthink what you're doing, now they've derailed your plans. Or you have to literally railroad them and just say no, which is going to make them unhappy. But if you want to do this and you want to do it right, you make the low-level characters up. You come to the session. You kind of give them an idea that what we're going to do. You don't have to be exact, right? Or maybe you say, hey, there's a huge combat. You're playing right now. You guys are going to role play your characters as really powerful characters, way beyond where they are right now, and you're going to each give me a scene or 3 scenes or whatever. The number doesn't matter. Narrate how your character deals with an army of bad guys in front of them. I'm going to give you full agency here, within reason, within scope, and then you would get them to the final scene. Then you take over narration. You narrate what happens. There's no choices for them to make. They get annihilated. Then you start the game with the characters they made.
I think that's pretty darn perfect, and along the same lines of what I was going to do. Mechanically, it's a challenge if you have them make the versions that they will be or could possibly be in the future. What happens if over the course of the events something happens, whether it be an in-game thing that you weren't initially planning, or a new book comes out and it changes the scope of a character? Well, I initially was going to be just all cleric. Well, now I'm a cleric fighter.
They find a girdle of femininity, masculinity. Now your dude is a lady, or your lady's a dude.
So your 20th level version that you actually played is no longer accurate to the story that you've actually portrayed at the first session. So having a bit of narration where there's no mechanical aspect to the game, there's no character sheet to work with, there's no, oh, well, these are the exact powers that you're using. You could just describe, oh, there's a titanic fight, spells and swords are slinging, minions are mowed down, and the power that you're throwing just isn't enough to bring this villain to his knees. He calls forth items of power. He leeches the power and from them and causes these effects to happen. Or he mows through your minions and runs you through. You give these cool, dramatic narrative effects. I would actually write up like what the specific narration is for each character's death, just so that you could, read it, memorize it, have things planned so that you're not just improvising that.
You might also have key points in that where you've taken over the narration, like where you said like he mows through the this army, comes right through you, runs through the fighter, gets in your face, has you by the back of the head, his sword is plunged out your back through your heart. What you're dying right now. What are your last words? Like you could throw it back, like things like that a little bit.
Oh, that would be awesome to be to like you're at session 1, you're less than a half hour into it, and you're asking the player what their final words are. That is pretty awesome. That's going to be memorable for the start of a game.
Yeah, so basically, and you don't want to totally blindside the players anyway. You want to give them an idea what's going on, and you might even be like, yeah, some bad stuff's going to happen, and then the game's going to start. So this way they have some idea, and see if there's any will to play that, right? Your players be like, I don't want to do that. And the other idea that you're going to actually make them make up a high level character, like that becomes a lot more work, and that they're going to go through it and be like, I just did all that for nothing. Like I could have just showed up with a blank piece of paper.
So I think D&D Beyond makes it a little bit easier to just be like 20 level dude, pull the machine.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to mechanically making a character that you're not actually playing now is difficult from both sides. Like you could have that change or not, and it might not be an issue, or like I'm not really playing that character now, so having him leveled all the way with all of these spells and
gear
it's a headache that they don't need at the moment. Now the second part of it, how would I sell something like this? Because I'm not having to make the 20th level characters. I would say, okay, I'm starting this campaign, and you tell them about what they're going to be doing from the low level perspective, and then I would ask them like, where do you see this character going? And give me a paragraph about what you see yourself at this campaign's finale. Visually, mechanically, however they want to do it, and use that.
So now as far as like what is the actual thing that brings them back? That could be anything. And here's the beauty of it. You don't even have to figure it out when you start. Like you could do the cold sweat waking up, and remembering this stuff that happened like a dream, but it felt really real. And, you can take it from there. You can explain it later on when maybe you have a better grasp of the campaign and where things have gone, and certain things that unfold in the campaign may inform that decision as well. Like this idea that we have to write everything out and you have to stick to it strictly. I think is bullshit, honestly, because nothing happens in the world until it actually happens.
So I would want to take this, and I would want to take your words literally. They wake up with a level of exhaustion. I would want some kind of birthmark or something on their body that denotes how they died. The fighter who took the sword.
He's got a starburst scar on his chest.
He's got a scar or something that's there that he doesn't ever remember getting, which makes that dream so much more real and like to an extent terrifying. And then as the campaign unfolds, they're going to come across this character and they're going to get to relive those moments where they begin meeting him and encountering him leading up to that final encounter. Maybe they go through and they remember, oh, well, he had this sword and he had that robes. Well, maybe those are specific things in your world, and it becomes a quest of who can get it first. Well, if he doesn't have those specific items of power, I'm going to get them first, and that'll make him weaker, thus allowing us to actually achieve our mission.
And also, like, you could even like introduce him early and they meet him, but he doesn't know who they are because it's the past.
Right? Well, yeah, they're going to know who he is, and he's not going to know who they are.
And they're sweating bullets like, oh my God, are we going to die again? Like the fighter's looking at the sword and like, you might describe the sword and like, it's familiar, you feel it. And, your scars begin to ache, things like that. Or, the wizard, who basically tried to counterspell his disintegrate that came off of his circlet that he's wearing right now. The gem gleams, in the light with that greenish sparkle, and that hand that you extended to counter his magic, which he
Begins to
totally,
shake.
but you totally obliterate it, and now it's forever marred black because of the failure. Is one of the reminders that you woke up with, and you're like, you become really conscious of the fact that one hand is discolored compared to the rest of you. So you can have some fun with it.
I think this sounds like a great way to start off a game. You just have to look at it, in a narrative perspective, so that you give the players the ability to have agency where they need it, and agency and not have agency where it would really screw up your plans.
And not only that too, for me it's about not making players roll dice when the outcomes literally do not matter. Like if you've already had the outcome in your head and you're telling them to roll dice, there's no point to those dice because you've already decided. So I think you're gonna end up with players that are bitter and they're gonna have a bad taste in their mouth and they may not appreciate it. It's one thing to enter a fight you can't win because you weren't really meant to fight it and you didn't seek another option, but it's another thing to enter a fight that you never had a choice on and you were just destined to lose and you were going to be locked into this fight no matter what.
So, do you have any advice for Daniel? How would you run this kind of game? Is this something you'd like to play in? There's a great place to continue that conversation. It's down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out at nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
Stay
stay
nerdy.
nerdy.